okay, if you believe me, or you somewhat believe me that you think it is important to actually validate, or maybe more importantly, reject some of the hypotheses you're making about the perceived value or the features and benefits about the product or the service that you want to create, and you want to source some additional insight from people that might actually be asked to either use or pay for whatever you're building. Now the next step is to actually go out and do that. Really hard work of collecting data and insight, quite frankly, into what the market wants, not what you want to build for them. Because I can tell you that ends 9 times out of 10 very, very poorly. So if we believe that customer development is a more efficient process for innovating and changing the world versus ego-driven product development, let's learn how to interview. Okay, so it's not as scary as it sounds, I promise. And if you heard me a few minutes ago say, keep your mouth shut and your ears and eyes open, really that's the only rule you need to pay attention to. So a few little ground rules that aren't here on the slide. We're not trying to sell your prototype. And so I apologize. Some of the photos I might have showed you earlier may have been a little misleading with demonstrating an ugly baby prototype on the streets. What you're wanting to do in this initial round of interviews is to really just listen and to either, recognize that there are other people that share the pain point that you've identified or have identified the opportunity or the friction point that you believe to be true. So you're just wanting to set up opportunities to have a very direct conversation about some sort of interplay in a personal setting, or in a professional setting, or in a educational setting. So you're just reaching out and asking for people's time. So a nice little trick here based on these bullet points is that you want to make the person that you want to learn from, and that's all you're doing, make he or she feel like they're an expert. Because obviously when you're asking for people to give up their time, they want to get what's in it for them. They want to feel like they've done something. And many people, 9.999 times out of 10 feel good about helping other people, right? So if you give them an opportunity to help you in a very brief amount of time, most of the time they're gonna allow that to happen. So one of the other things tactically I want to make clear is this exchange of information that you want to embark upon should be in person. That's the best possible scenario. As my photos illustrated earlier, you're going to learn a lot, not only verbally, and you're going to be able to kind of take notes as you go, but also you're going to hear a lot and see a lot in terms of people's body language and in terms of their facial expression. So ask for 15 minutes. If you do this right, this type of conversation might last for 30 minutes or best case scenario up to an hour. But if you start with a 15-minute request, you're going to be in really good shape. So you don't need to come prepared with any in-depth questions. You just want to focus on understanding the pain point, the friction that they experience within whatever sector you're trying to innovate, whatever industry, whatever social scenario. Just have them walk you through a day in the life of X, right? So you don't have to write any of these down. Certainly we'll make them available to you, but really it's just let that person be free to tell you about their life and the context in which they grapple with a friction point or some hobby or some work process that they're dealing with, or maybe it's a bigger pain point that you're addressing, whether it's natural disasters, whether it's global hunger, water, food, energy. You want to be talking to people that deal with these pain points on a daily, if not hourly basis. And you just want to listen to what are the key factors that play a role. And as they're talking, what you're going to be listening for is kind of something that you wouldn't have thought of yourself, because you're sitting in your home office, you're sitting in your garage or your home or your kitchen or your lab or wherever it is that you are. And you're not daily exposed potentially to all the nuances that they are. So as this exchange is going, what you don't want to do is to sell, like I said. So the photos I showed you earlier might come at the very, very end after you've gotten a good chunk of insight into the daily trials and tribulations that these people have associated with the pain point that you're trying to address. But at no point do you need to turn this into a sales interview. And it's not a sales call. It is an interview, just like our friends who study journalism. You're just going out there to learn and to be able to connect the dots. So do not say, let me tell you about my awesome prototype, or assume that you understand what their situation is. Best case scenario as you're doing these interviews is you ask an initial probing question and then you shut up for the whole rest of the time. Easy peasy. It's still a lot of work, but from a tactical approach, all you have to do is listen and maybe jot down a few notes. So we'll provide you with some template tools that you can capture some of the insights that you might glean. So I would challenge you, as somebody who cares a lot about engineers and innovators and how you can impact our future, to go out and practice this very difficult sport called customer development. And so to practice this, we're going to ask you to go out and conduct 5 interviews. Basically ask 5 people that you have identified as very worthwhile end users or payers in the scenario that you've mapped out for yourself, to have 5 potentially 30 to 50 minute long interviews with you. So as you're doing that, you're going to look and listen. You're not going to show them any sketches you made, any 3D prototypes, anything that you're doing to kind of advance your prototyping class. You just want to either validate or, more importantly, reject that you're on the right track here and you're validating what might be in your head with what you're hearing out in the real world. And then most importantly, you want to be able to reject your initial guesses and potentially change course if what you're hearing from these 5 or 10, or like I said, up to 100 people that you talk to are pushing you in the direction that you think they'll appreciate, not what you're going to try to shove down their throat. So this is an extremely important process, and I applaud you for having the willingness to undertake the hard work of customer development so you can get the product development process right as a very successful engineer and entrepreneur and innovator. Let's do it.